Hi, I'm Carol Allen with loveisinthestars.com. And today I wanted to talk about a little something happening in the news, which is, of course, the coronation of King Charles III. And I thought, in honor of our new king, I would wear my family tiara. No, I wasn't prom queen. I haven't actually been a princess or a queen of anything. I don't have a title, but I was actually once named Lady Moron by a bona fide English lord. But that is a story for another day. So King Charles has been waiting a whopping 70 years for this job, 74 to be exact. But his mother was coronated 70 years ago in, gosh, what year is it? In 1953, and he was just 4 years old watching that. And it must have been a strange awareness for him to realize, like, ooh, one day that'll be my job, and I'll be in that chair, and I'll have a big goofy crown. And to find out that the only way to get the job was to have mummy die, right? Like, weird. So he's been waiting a very long time, and this is his moment. And so what's incredible is, in astrology, when there's a big world event or a big changing of the guard, it will be obvious in the stars. And Charles's chart is an incredible example of this. Now, of course, he already became king. He became king as soon as his mother died. You probably know all this. But the coronation is, the big ceremony that the Brits are so good at, where you basically take all the vows and sign all the oaths and, are ordained and consecrated and all the words for the job. And you get all, the eyes of the world, and you hang out with your fellow royals from all over Europe. And Charles has always been a pretty progressive guy, and so there's going to be an incredible inclusion of people from all over the world to reflect what a melting pot England and London have become since since the last coronation, since his mother's coronation, which is fantastic. So anyway, I thought, instead of just me yammering, I would actually show you Charles's chart. I thought that could be really fun. And so, thanks to the miracle of modern technology, I can actually show you. So here we are looking at the chart of King Charles. Now, this is in Vedic astrology, which is a different system. It's the system of ancient India. And what's amazing is the royal family, of course, has been known to consult astrologers for hundreds of years. Queen Elizabeth I famously had an astrologer come and visit her in the Tower of London when she thought her sister Queen Mary was going to have her beheaded, right? And instead, this astrologer actually informed her that, in fact, she herself would become queen, and that she would reign for a very long time and have a very successful, uh, period, which of course is the Elizabethan era of Elizabeth I. And so, I mean, maybe even longer than that, but as far back as Elizabeth, we know for sure the royal family has consulted astrologers. And I have to wonder if they picked this time for Charles purposely, because the charts right now are really powerful and really incredible and really reflecting exactly what's happening. So if they had called me, I would have said, wait till May. And here is why. Okay, so this, you can see my pointer, I hope. This is his main chart. Now over here we have all these subcharts. In Vedic astrology, there's 16 subcharts, but for our purposes today, we're just going to focus on his main chart. Now, I use the North Indian format of the chart. There's both South Indian and North Indian, and they look very different. So if you are a student of astrology or an astrologer yourself, I apologize if this isn't the format that you use. And if you're a Western astrologer, you're used to something else entirely, which is a round wheel to reflect the zodiac. And so you won't be able to read this at all, just like I can't read a Western chart. But anyway, so here we have Charles's chart. His rising sign is Cancer. His sun sign is at the very end of Libra, and his moon sign is Aries. Now, this is, of course, according to the calculations of Vedic astrology, which are different from Western astrology. And that's a whole other conversation. You can look that up on my website at Love is in the Stars. You can look that up on Wikipedia. But so just bear with me. Okay, so what's amazing in his chart is a lot of things, but one of the things that's incredible about right now is that Charles is in what's called his nodal return. He's in his north and south node return. These are right here, RA and KE. We call these Rahu and Ketu. Rahu and Ketu indicate destiny, and it takes them 18 to 20 years on average to go all the way around the zodiac. And so for the first time in, 18 to 20 years, they are in the signs of Aries and Libra, where they were when he was born. So Rahu is actually in the sign of his Rahu in his 10th house. This is a very powerful place for Rahu to be, both at birth and by transit. The Rahu return, the nodal return, is a time of destiny, a time of heightened experience, heightened fruits of your labor, a time of stepping into your mission or your purpose. And when Rahu is in the 10th house, it makes you have a big reputation. It makes you famous. It makes you known. And to be in the Rahu return, he's arguably the most famous he has ever been right now. And especially on the day of his coronation, right? I mean, it's comparable to the day he married Princess Diana. So he is in a time of expanded reputation, stepping into his destiny. And this has been going on for a while. This nodal return began in the spring of 2022. And what's interesting is he has the moon here. MO is the abbreviation for the moon. He has the moon also in the 10th house. And the moon is one of the indicators in the chart of the mother. And the moon, of course, would represent Queen Elizabeth II, his mother. And when Rahu goes through the sign where you have the moon, this is commonly when there is a change in status with your mother. If you're older, this is commonly when your mother passes. And of course, she did. He also has had Ketu going through his 4th house. The 4th house is the mother. Ketu also tends to make for big changes, sudden reversals, sudden upheavals. And, she, for all we knew anyway, the public, she died very suddenly. We were only notified, that she was ill the very day she died. And so he's been in this kind of heightened karmic destiny time for over a year now. And so that just leaps out at you. Now, the other thing that is quite interesting is Charles, of course, has been waiting, as I already said, 7 decades for this opportunity to step into his destiny. And here we have the planet Saturn, SA is short for Saturn, in the sign right beside the rising sign. And Saturn does something called aspecting the 3rd sign from itself, which if we count from Leo to Virgo to Libra, that is the sign where the sun is. And Saturn, of course, is in the sign of the sun. It's in the sign of Leo, which is ruled by the sun. And Saturn sun people are late bloomers. Saturn sun people have their greatest success in the 2nd half of life. Now, we could argue he's in more like the third of life, unless he lives to be 150, unless those like anti-aging pills hurry up and get here quickly. odds are, King Charles is nearing his own end of life, right? So Saturn has, had a lot to do with why this took so long, why he is now an old man stepping into the very thing he was born for, right? Now, what makes his chart powerful, because you don't get to be, a king of, a commonwealth of 50 something countries and of one of the largest, most impactful countries in the world, in the history of the world. And you don't get to become one of the richest people on the planet. I think he's worth almost $2 billion now, without having a powerful chart. So there are many things that make this chart powerful. Charles was born the day before a lunar eclipse. And what's incredible about the coronation is it's the day after a lunar eclipse. So eclipses are very significant in his life, and eclipses can signify good things and bad. In the chart of a person, in terms of their personal life, lunar eclipses are very challenging on the personal life. The moon indicates our emotions, our attachments, our family, our mother relationship. And when Rahu is with the moon and Ketu is with the sun, which is what he has, this is a lunar eclipse. And when the moon is eclipsed, the mother is as well. And the things the moon signify are also eclipsed. So, his mother had this ginormous job as soon as he was 4, right? And she was taken away for months at a time. And she had this duty that was more important for her life in terms of her responsibilities and where she was expected to put her focus than her own children and her own family. And so he, of course, had to have felt the sting of that. And then being an aristocrat, they send their children away when they're young. And so Rahu with the moon shows that rupture in the motherly bond and in the family relationships. Rahu and the moon are also here in the 10th house, which has a lot to do with the father. And Ketu is here with the sun, and the sun is the father. And Rahu and Ketu are eclipse points. When Ketu's with the sun, there's always disruption in the relationship with the father as well. And so, he again was sent away. And if the crown is to be believed, his father insisted he go to his school, alma mater, his high school, and instead of Eton, where he wanted to go. And he felt very unhappy for many, many years in the schooling he went through. He called it hell on earth. I mean, he absolutely hated his younger years and his schooling years, and was always very sensitive. Rahu people, Ketu people, when they're with the sun or the moon or in the rising sign or with the ruling planet of the chart, which he has, because as a Cancer rising person, the moon is the ruling influence of the whole chart. And to be with Rahu and Ketu make people extremely sensitive and make people feel things greatly and deeply. And he has the moon in Aries, which we haven't even talked about yet. And Aries is a very, very passionate, intense sign. And what's actually lovely is the moon is in a constellation called Ashwini. This is one of the original 27 Vedic signs. And Ashwini is symbolized by a horse's head. Ashwini people love horses, are often equestrians, which of course King Charles is, as a lifelong, polo player, and having had a mother who was extremely involved in horses and raising horses and breeding horses and racing horses. And what's amazing is the moon, of course, is the mother, and it's in this constellation symbolized by a horse's head. And again, if the crown is to be believed, her greatest happiness was being a horsewoman, right? Her greatest happiness was having horses and breeding horses and racing horses. Uh, and so that's quite interesting. The other thing, though, that I personally love about Ashwini is it's mystical and it's esoteric and it's associated with healing and with longevity. And OG, the moon again, is the mother in a constellation associated with longevity. So she lived a long time. And he just might as well. I'd be surprised if he does as long as she did. You know, in Vedic astrology, in India to this day, when you get a reading, the first thing they tell you is how long you will live and when you will die. I purposely haven't studied this because as an American, we do not have a very good relationship with death. We culturally don't have a lot of support for it. And I never wanted to know how long my clients would live or my family members. And I didn't want to withhold that information from anyone. And I didn't want to have to deliver that information to anyone. So I don't know how long Charles will live. But what's so cool about Ashwini is associated with holistic health and healing. And it's actually symbolized not just by a horse's head, but by a celestial chariot and almost like an ambulance to the gods, if you will. And so Ashwini people usually love alternative medicine, usually love healing modalities. And King Charles has actually been, a champion of holistic health and holistic alternative medicine for 50 years. And he's very supportive of things like homeopathy and diet and nutrition and juicing and acupuncture. And so he has my support just for that. But anyway, back to this. So here's what's so incredible about what's going on now and why this is all happening now. So Vedic astrology has something called planetary periods. And these periods help to explain why we go through what we go through when we go through it. And the planetary period you're in has the biggest say over what's happening in your life. And the planetary period that Charles is in is a planetary period of Jupiter. And this period is actually quite nice. For Cancer rising, Jupiter is one of the best influences. This is when, people tend to have a lot of abundance and have a lot of serenity. Now, you could argue he's always had a lot of abundance, but the planet of drama that brings a lot of upheaval and chaos and things kind of out of your hands and out of your control and is Rahu. And so he was in a Rahu period from 1994 till 2011. And this, of course, these were the years he and Diana divorced. Then she had her tragic accident in 97. And then he and Camilla had to wait 5 years before they could marry. And then, he's really had to rebuild his reputation. But the Rahu period would have been, I would say, the most turbulent, the most chaotic, the most dramatic of his life. And Jupiter, which has been since 2012, has been far happier, far more settled, far more solid. And but what's incredible is Jupiter is, the bringer of the greatest gifts, the greatest boons, especially if it's well placed in your chart or if it's the ruler of good houses. And for Cancer rising, it's considered very auspicious. And no kidding, 2 days ago, I'm doing this on the day of the coronation, on May the 4th, King Charles went into a sub period in his Jupiter period of the sun. So he's in a combination of Jupiter and the sun. Jupiter rules his 9th house, which is the house of, like divine gifts and blessings, the house of higher consciousness, the house of Dharma, which is like doing your mission, doing your purpose, and the house of like honors and being heralded and being, given like great respect. And the sun is the indicator of the self and your career and your purpose. And a Jupiter sun time is always a very expansive time for name and fame. The sun specifically rules his second house, which is the house of the family and the house of name and fame. And so that, I mean, for that to have started just 2 days before his coronation is kind of crazy, and makes me feel like they must have talked to an astrologer, like they must have worked with one. Yeah, so super powerful stuff. Now, I think what we should do next is look at the coronation chart itself. So the chart of the coronation, here we have Cancer rising again. So the coronation is at 11 a.m. in London on May the 6th. And by the time I post this, that will have passed. Forgive me. I tend to be last minute with very exciting things like this. But the coronation chart has the signifier, forgive me, the signifier of the king in the 10th house. And the 10th house, again, is the house of, you know, doing your destiny, living your purpose, doing your mission and career. And this, of course, is his life's work. This is his career. And so the sun being in the 10th house with Rahu, again, what did I say about Rahu in the 10th house? This gives you tremendous reputation. This gives you stewardship over the masses. This gives you influence. So the coronation chart has this just jam-packed 10th house, this very powerful 10th house. And it also has Jupiter here, which is, again, like blessings, protection, grace. You know, a lot of people are saying that really it's time to get rid of the monarchy, really, without Elizabeth and with all the chaos with, you know, Harry and Meghan, and with all the drama in the family with Andrew, you know, that there's just been too much, and that the family isn't strong enough, and that there aren't enough members, and that there isn't enough, you know, for the public to hold on to and to care about anymore. And that really the young people especially don't relate to this really old guy in these goofy outfits, right? Like all this pomp and circumstance, like young people, the average, you know, 20-something teenager in the UK, you know, isn't connecting. And they were more with Harry and Meghan, and they do more with, of course, William and Kate and their darling children. And I have to say, I definitely think the family will continue, and the royal, you know, the monarchy will continue. And this chart has Jupiter, the most blessing bringing, supportive, protective, helpful influence in the 10th house with the sun. So it's like, hey, not on Charles's watch, right? But he won't, I think, have a super easy time of it. And I think this is because the ruling influence of the chart of the coronation, it's a Cancer rising chart, and it's the moon. Here we have MO, and it's just at 0 degrees. When a planet is at 0 degrees, or the sun and the moon are at 0 degrees, it's not quite in its energy yet. It's like between signs. It's on the cusp of signs. It's actually what's called Sandhi in Vedic astrology, which, you know, basically means asleep. Like it's not fully present or awake. So in a chart, the moon indicates the public also. And the 7th house here indicates the public, and it also indicates partners, right? And so the Commonwealth, all these 50 plus countries, which includes, of course, Australia, Canada, I mean, 50 plus countries, several countries, of course, in Africa and in the Caribbean. The ruler of the house of partners is in the 8th house of scandals, calamities, upheavals. And of course, it's been mentioned and talked about quite a bit that when Elizabeth died, a lot of these other countries said, you know, we think we've had enough, right? We don't want William and Kate to visit. We don't want to be part of the Commonwealth anymore. We want to declare our independence. We want to do our own thing. And I definitely think there will be some of that happening for sure. And also because, with the ruling planet at 0 degrees, the ruling planet, even though of course the moon is a moon, it's not a planet. We just call it that for shorthand. When the ruling planet of a chart is at 0 degrees, it's a little out of gas, and it's not giving a lot of strength to the chart. It's like the foundation of the chart. It's like the battery pack of the chart, and it's a little out of gas. And so that weakens this. And then of course, Rahu and Ketu taking center stage, being in the 4th and 10th houses of the chart also is, indicating there's not going to be a ton of stability, but there is, in the sense that the moon is in a fixed sign. Saturn, the planet of like stability, is in a fixed sign. The fixed signs are the most stable. But all the other planets are in movable signs and mutable signs. So, Charles will, of course, continue to travel a great deal and, continue to have a lot of various things he's involved with and a lot of interest in a lot of things. He's been, of course, a huge environmentalist and, very, very active in numerous charities. And that will for sure continue. The rising sign of the coronation chart, which, by the way, I didn't even say, the chart of the coronation is the birth of his, officially fully being in the role of king. And the rising sign, if you look to the deeper Vedic sign, is what's called Pusha. And Pusha is really all about selfless service, all about taking care of the underprivileged, taking care of the masses. It's symbolized, I love this so much, it's symbolized by a giant udder of a cow in the sky, which is all about nourishing the world, right? And it's thought that of all the 27 Vedic signs, Pusha is the most altruistic. It's the most concerned with charity. It's the most concerned with helping others. And so that is quite lovely. So I definitely think King Charles will do a lot of good. Saturn, of course, is very prominent because, again, it's aspecting the sun and it's aspecting the moon. So his talk about paring down the monarchy, about, tightening the belt, he apparently is having his brother move out of his ginormous house, and he basically took Frogmore Cottage away from Harry and Meghan. And so he is kind of, concentrating everything. He's not expanding, and he's talking quite a bit about really streamlining the monarchy more than it ever has been, and being more of like a humble king. And so his mother, of course, had 8,000 people at her coronation. He's only having 2,000 people. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. It's going to be interesting. So I also, of course, Charles has a queen. He has a queen consort. And so I took a look at Camilla's chart. His coronation chart, having the ruler of the house of partnership in the 8th house, is not the greatest for their relationship. The coronation chart also shows a move, and him having K2 in his 4th house for the last year, the 4th house is home, is also an indicator of moving. And, they were living in such a beautiful house. Oh my gosh. And I bet they didn't want to leave. I bet, they were living in Clarence house. And if you Google it, like, set your face to wow. Okay. They restored it. They put so much time and love and money into this beautiful, beautiful estate. And, now they're in this giant, palace in London. And I bet they didn't want to do that. I bet they begrudgingly left their beautiful house. But anyway, I'm a little concerned about their relationship, because in the coronation chart, the ruler of the house of partnership is in the 8th house, which is disappointing and can create like upheaval with the partner. And so, you know, his greater responsibilities, he always had a lot of responsibilities and he was always very busy, and they traveled a lot for his duties, I think as much as 6 months out of the year. But I think it's going to be a lot more now. I think he's going to be, you know, his life is really not his own now. And I think that's going to be hard on them. I'm sorry to say, but because I'm a sucker for love, and uh, you know, I have a lot of compassion for them because of, you know, how long they waited to be together and how much they had to go through. And I love Diana too, of course. Uh, and he and Camilla are astrologically the far better match. So back to her. She, interestingly, is in a major period of Venus and a minor period of Saturn. She here is also Cancer rising. That's part of their connection, is they have the same rising sign. And then she has the sun in Cancer as well. Anytime you share a sun sign, moon sign, or rising sign with another person, you'll feel very bonded. You'll feel very connected. You'll feel extremely familiar. So they had that right away. And she has the moon in Gemini, and actually the moon and Venus and Mercury in Gemini. By all accounts, she's a lot of fun and she's very charming. Joan Rivers, of all people, was good friends with Charles and Camilla. And she said they were both just a hoot, and they were both just tons of fun, and they have great sense of humor. You know, people that work for her, everybody claims she's really very upbeat and very positive, and you know, has a light touch and is very able to cheer Charles up, that he's very happy with her. And I believe it, because moon in Gemini, moon Venus, Mercury and Gemini, Mercury and Venus, when they get together in the same sign, very playful, and Gemini is very youthful and playful. And that's quite lovely to have a partner that's like that. It's quite lovely to be like that. So I'm happy for her. And she's been in a major period of Venus for quite a long time, since 2010. Venus is, you know, the planet of luxury, the planet of, you know, real estate in her chart. Again, she got to live in Clarence House, and now she's in Buckingham Palace. Venus is also the planet of, you know, love and romance. It's a very happy period for her. And the sub period she is currently in is a little more difficult. It's our buddy Saturn again. And Saturn periods and sub periods are when we have the greatest responsibilities, and we have to be the most serious and disciplined, and we have to really face the music in our life and, you know, do our duty. Saturn is the planet of burdens, duties, responsibilities. So this began for her in December, and this goes until February of 2026. And Saturn subperiods are not easy on the health. They're commonly when we have more fatigue and we don't have as much energy, and we feel less, you know, oomph, so to speak. And so it could be a time where she could be really slowing down, and she could feel very tired by their schedule and how much they have to take care of and how busy they are. And so I hope that she's okay. I hope that, you know, they're able to be happy in spite of this completely new role. She certainly knew what she was getting herself into. They've certainly had decades to think about it and prepare for it and talk about it. And yeah, so we shall see how that all shakes out. But she's, you know, like I said, a fun, positive person, and life gets a lot better in 2026. I think she's well, and here's another amazing thing. Rahu, of course, is in her 10th house. Influence over the masses, right? Greater reputation and prestige. She is also arguably more famous than ever. Isn't that crazy? Isn't this weird? Anyway, as you can see, I can talk for forever about astrology and charts of famous people and big events. And so no matter, you know, what happens, no matter how you might feel about the monarchy or the British, I am not British. And as we've established, I am only Lady Monarch, Lady Moron. I am not a monarch. But I do wish them well. I do think, you know, tradition and, uh, you know, pomp and circumstance have their place. These people are symbols, and these symbols mean a great deal to a lot of people. And they're controversial, of course, and they're steeped in a lot of frustrating, difficult history. So like most things in life, there's, you know, nothing simple about any of it. But anyway, I sincerely wish Charles all the best, and the family all the best. And I really thank all of you for watching and staying with me all this time. If you would like to learn more about Vedic astrology and how it impacts all of our relationships in amazing ways, you can check out my world at loveisinthestars.com. And to learn more about the incredible zodiac of Vedic astrology and things like Ashwini, Charles's moon sign, or you know, his rising sign that I talked about. The one, gosh, it's so late. I'm so sorry. I'm like blanking. But anyway, there's 27 Vedic signs, and they're absolutely astonishing and so accurate. And oh, Pusha, that's the one. Pusha, the great teat in the sky. Who could forget that, right? Anyway, if you'd like to learn more about all of that, you can find a whole world of information at loveisinthestars.com. And I will see you the next time there's something exciting to share. And until then, God save us all. Good night.